All right, guys, welcome to the Onelife Podcast. Today, we've got Liz with us.
Yes.
She is a competitive powerlifter.
Yes.
Came from a bodybuilding, bikini type background.
Yes.
You're also very tiny, and even when I met her today, her handshake is very, very strong.
It kind of takes you by surprise sometimes.
Yeah.
I forget often.
Yeah, it's funny, you didn't even try. I was like, damn, you can tell that you lift heavy weights. So let's where'd you get started? How long have you been training for? What got you into training?
Oh my gosh. Originally I got into, well, I come kind of from a sports background, so
What type of sports?
I did wrestling in high school.
Oh, did you really?
I did.
Is that common for females to do wrestling?
No, not at all.
So what made you start wrestling?
Honestly, it wasn't necessarily like a personal desire of mine to begin with. I actually had a really close friend of mine who was struggling with weight. And
A guy or a girl?
A guy.
Okay.
And so our freshman year, we're kind of like obviously fresh meat at the campus, and he was scared to go by himself to tryouts and
For wrestling.
for wrestling, to sign up.
Gotcha.
And to see what all that looked like and entailed. And so I was like, I'll go with you, like just for moral support. You know, I'm like you said, I'm tiny, so I'm like, I have no place to be in this gym with all these smelly boys running around half naked. I'm like, I'm
Smelly
good.
boys,
I'm like,
yeah.
I'm okay, thank you. But I'm like, I will go for you for moral support because he wanted to lose weight, and I know it's something that he was struggling with for a really long time. So I was like, I'll go with you. So I go with him, and again, I'm a small person, so I kind of just sit to the side. I'm just waiting for him, and honestly, like on the corner of my eye, I kind of see two coaches, and they're, you know, kind of looking at everybody, seeing who's walking in, and I briefly hear their conversation and overhear them look at me and say, well, she's not going to last more than 2 weeks. And
gotcha. So they thought you were gonna.
Wait, what? I'm like, first off, I'm not here for me.
Are you a competitive type person?
I am extremely competitive.
Why.
It's probably one of the characteristics that anybody will define me as.
Really?
Is extremely
so that lit a fire that you weren't even thinking about doing it.
No, not at all.
And then telling you couldn't.
Yeah, of course.
So that's the reason you started.
Yes, that's the reason I started. I had no clue what, you know, the dynamic behind wrestling, but it didn't even matter, you know, because at that point it was just like, how do you characterize somebody by what they look like?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, when you don't even really know them.
Which is, it's all mindset, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I feel like I've always had a very strong mindset in regards to like getting things done. And so he walked over, my friend walked back over to me, and I was like, give me that damn clipboard. Like,
really?
And he's like, what? And I was like, I'm signing up with you. He's like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah. And so I did, wrestling for about 3 years.
Did you really?
Yeah. And
with all males?
With all males.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's so cool.
There was one other female.
Oh, was there?
Yes. And
was she like, how tall are you?
I am 5'1".
Okay, so you're pretty small.
Yeah.
Was she as small as you?
No, she was slightly taller, maybe like 5'3", 5'4".
Gotcha.
So
how cool
very
is that?
average height, and she was maybe 20 pounds heavier than I was.
Yeah.
I was maybe 102 pounds.
Yeah,
103.
yeah, you kind of weighed much.
No,
that's
not
crazy.
At all. Yeah.
And you stuck it for 3 years.
I stuck it out for 3 years because my first year I feel like I was just there to prove something, and then I found a passion for the fitness world and just like what you can put your body through, and like how resilient you can
Blood
really
for
become.
punishment. I mean, some people are like that, right?
Something like that. Yeah. So I did everything I could. I went from my freshman year as JV and transitioned into varsity my sophomore year, which was very common, but I trained like the seniors would. I trained like everybody in varsity would. So
gotcha.
Varsity had to go do extra laps. I went out and did extra laps.
Were you like, I know jiu-jitsu, like you wrestle with the guys. Were you so you're wrestling with the the guys for the most part?
Only guys.
Okay.
My coach, after
Which
my
is probably
first...
the best thing you could possibly do for
Absolutely.
making you improve.
100%.
You want to get better, train with people better than you, or stronger than you.
And stronger, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I was the smallest one there, 100 pounds. Nobody's gonna.
So you had to get your technique down.
Yes.
You couldn't. That's the thing. Like when I started jiu-jitsu, I was relying on strength because I was stronger.
Strength, of course.
And then I realized that it doesn't work that way. It only
Yeah.
lasts for the first month, and then you realize that hey, strength is not how jiu-jitsu or wrestling works.
Exactly.
So you were kind of humble from day one,
Yeah.
and you had to get the technique right to make the
I had to work for every single.
yeah. But I
every
mean, that
single
must have
move.
made you so strong and so relentless.
It did.
And if you actually
honestly.
pinned someone, that must have been amazing.
Yes,
The guys,
yes.
how did the guys handle that? They must have hated
the guys
that.
loved it because I was such a little like fireball that
Little firecracker.
there was a very mutual respect.
Which is great, right?
Yeah, within
So there should
within
be.
sports.
Yeah.
Because they understood how small I was, but when it came to our conditioning and when it came to running laps, when it came to doing our weight train, when it came to do anything outside of actually like competing, I was training with all varsity, even when I was JV, because
Yeah.
I knew like if the whole goal is to go varsity, the whole goal is to continue to grow and get better, why am I going to train like JV? Like if seniors have to do extra push-ups and varsity does extra push-ups, then I'm going to do extra push-ups.
Gotcha.
Because I did want that mutual respect, not just because, I'm here and part of your team, but because I train just as hard as you. And when we did group competitions, I wanted them to also know, like, I got your back because you know what I train like.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
at the end of the day, when I come and I compete, I'm going to compete at my best. Even if we do win or we don't, we all know that we always put our best foot forward because of how we trained.
You
in
put the
gym.
work in, so you're prepared.
Exactly.
Did you find yourself, without realizing, just starting to get in really good shape, like to look at? Did you find like you're getting abs and you're getting muscles and... Like, I mean, that's not why you do it, but is that how you led into bodybuilding, or led into like bikini?
Actually, it made me more conscious of the weight that I was putting on. I could tell a pound to 2 pound difference in my body weight.
Yeah, I'm sure you could.
So it made me more necessarily aware of how my body was functioning, rather than having a desire for like abs. And at that time, I think, back in the day when I was in high school, like I don't know, I guess we didn't really care about abs.
No, I didn't care about it either.
As much as we do now, but
It's so stupid, right?
yeah, it was.
I feel like you're so free in high school because
Exactly.
you're not worrying about the stuff. It
Yeah,
doesn't matter. And it
not
still
at
doesn't
all.
matter. It still doesn't matter, but we get caught up that it does.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
how did you go from wrestling to, so you finished high school, and then when did you start getting to competing?
I didn't. That was another, kind of
Did somebody tell you you can't?
involuntary experience, I guess you could say. I had a boyfriend at the time who did bodybuilding,
Okay.
and he invited me to go train at the gym,
Okay.
and I was like, how hard could it be?
Yeah.
How hard could it be?
I'm a wrestler. Like,
yeah, I'm like, I used to wrestle. We did tons of conditioning. I'm like, there's no other type of conditioning that's really worse than like wrestling, boxing type of style.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, should be fine, throwing a couple weights around, no big deal. And so we got in there, and he started with push-ups, just to warm up, some push-ups, things like that sort. And I couldn't do 5 push-ups.
oh, really?
Yeah.
How old were you then?
Oh my gosh, maybe like 21.
So it wasn't long since you
No,
lost
it wasn't
skill.
long, but
What
I
happened?
had stopped. I had stopped wrestling my senior year, and then obviously a couple years after that, I didn't really go back into training or anything like that.
So you had a little couple years break. So you hate that,
And then,
taking a break.
Yeah, but mentally, I was like, how hard could that be?
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, like I could do 5 push-ups, so I did, and I couldn't. And that kind of lit a fire in me. And I was like, wait, what? Like, how does that even happen? And I was so determined to come in every single day. I'm like, I'm coming back with you tomorrow and the next day until I can do these push-ups.
Yeah.
Because this is ridiculous. Like, how
Yeah.
could I not be able to do this? it's like your own body weight, how can
yeah,
you
yeah.
not?
I mean, it should be everybody should have a certain staple that they can do.
Something as simple as like even just like body squats, being able to do push-ups, things
That's
like
the thing,
that,
right?
of
Like
that sort.
we do all this training, but a lot of people just can't sit down and get off the couch comfortable, or get off the ground. It's it's very scary.
Like maybe touching your toes would be nice.
That'd be nice too, right? Yeah, or being able to see your toes.
Exactly.
Would be another one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Things of that sort. It's just like very normal things that we should be able to do to just properly function.
Yeah.
And, elongate the longevity of our age life.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
would be nice.
How long did you train with your boyfriend before you thought about? Did you put on muscle easy, being shorter? And I know, I'm not trying to say it's a bad thing, but I know shorter guys generally stock up a lot quicker than taller guys.
You know what? I think it also has a lot to do, not necessarily with your height in general, but I think a lot of it comes from like genetics in regards to how you hold muscle.
Okay.
So there's different body types, a lot of different people. You see, even my height, there's a lot of women who are fairly thin.
Yeah, yeah.
And then there's other women who are more bone dense, who have a lot more, structure to them.
A lot more curves and things
exactly.
too, right?
And so I kind of felt like in the middle of it, where if I did train, heavy weights, my body would hold on to the muscle. I just had to really watch my diet.
Okay.
Whereas somebody who's very
like ectomorph, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's
I'm
the
same.
ecto, the
I'm
meso.
The same. Yeah. I can put weight on, but also I can get bigger.
Exactly.
Which was great when I was younger, but now I'm older. It's like now I got to watch my diet.
Same, exactly. So now you're just like, okay, fine, I'll cut back on the French toast.
How old are you now, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 30 now.
Oh, you're okay. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what got you into the competing side? Was your boyfriend competing?
He did.
Okay.
So he competed in bodybuilding, and again, I had no intention in competing. I didn't want to be like half naked on stage. Not that there's anything wrong, but just for me.
Yeah, no.
I've
never been on stage. Yeah.
I didn't want to be on stage and having somebody judge me.
Yeah.
But at the time, again, I just adapted his principles and his training style. I was already really used to working around a lot of boys, coming from a wrestling background. So it wasn't very much intimidating to work around him and his friends. So I just started working out with them, and trained legs like the guys train legs, trained back the way guys train back, shoulders, delts, everything. And I remember being at LVAC one day by myself, and I had Dennis Wolf actually come up to me.
Oh, really?
Yes. And he's like, have you ever thought about competing? And I'm like, clueless, because I didn't come with the intention to compete in anything. It just came because I wanted to work out.
You're enjoying it, obviously.
And I was enjoying it, yeah. And by that time, I was lifting a lot heavier. I was, I had a good size quads, good size back. Like I was super lean, very like pretty lean, pretty shredded, honestly.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, compete in what? I didn't even know what he was talking about.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I didn't even know who he was.
Yeah.
And so he's like, in bikini competitions, and I'm like, no, I thought
that
was kind of
I was gonna say, you probably thought that was probably pretty weird.
Yeah.
If you don't know anything about it.
Yeah, and I didn't know who
But if you
he
did,
was.
you'd probably be flattered.
Yeah, of course, 100%. Now I would be like, oh my God,
yeah,
but thank you so much,
You're like, who's this guy?
Yeah. And so the next day, my boyfriend was like, hey, I brought up the conversation to him, and I was like, hey, this guy was like asking me if I did competitions, and he's like, well, which guy? And I showed him, and he's like, that guy? And I was like, yeah. He's like, do you know who that is? And I'm like, no. He's like, that's Dennis Wolf. He's like a 3-time Olympian, and I'm like, I don't know what that is, And so
that's hilarious. That's just how detached you were from.
Yeah.
I just go to the gym, lift weights, and that's that. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I was like,
which is totally fine too,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely. Because it was more of a personal thing for me that I just wanted to, kind of get in and just feel good, about myself. And it was always about like how much farther can I push my body?
Yeah.
and how much more can my body handle, you know? And so when he showed me, I was like, oh shoot, I didn't know that's who he was. And that's what kind of piqued my interest into, you know, building a smaller relationship with that group also, and then transition it into doing my first competition.
Gotcha.
You know? So, yeah.
I think Ronnie Coleman was on the same page. You know that?
You said who was?
Ronnie Coleman. Somebody came up to him and he's like, you should compete. And he's like, why would I compete? He's like, I'll give you a free membership if you compete. And that's what got him into competing.
Oh, really?
Was the free membership. I literally watched a documentary a couple weeks ago. He got a free membership if he started competing, and then look where he ended up.
And now look where he is now.
Yeah,
exactly.
huge.
Yeah.
So
amazing.
How did you go? Did you have your, who was your guidance? Was your boyfriend your guidance for the competition, prep? Posing?
I kind of had a couple people within the gym. Once I kind of built a little bit of that understanding as far as like what bodybuilding was and what it entailed. I was like, okay, well, I'm not too far from that already. You know, I was already lean. I already had quads. I already had delts.
Well, obviously you had the right something going on to be recognized.
Yeah, and so I was like,
so you started fine tuning, like tweaking.
Exactly.
Okay.
So then we kind of went into like, okay, well, let's just jump into something, you know. And then sure enough, with my boyfriend was helping me at the time, kind of, you know, set up a diet. Clueless, basically. Both of us were pretty clueless.
How do you are you pretty strict with dieting back then, or do you like your food?
Extremely.
Really? So you just have the ability. You're just you're pretty rare then. So you went from not dieting to just like, hey, I can do this.
Yes, because I feel like I didn't know any different, you know. And I think with the background of wrestling, it's if you wanted these type of results, this is what you have to do.
Amen, right?
You know, and
that's all there is to it.
When it comes to wrestling, there's no feeling involved. There's no like, well, do you feel like running? Do you feel like doing conditioning? Do you feel like doing drills? You know, one of the coolest things that one of my coaches just recently told me is it's not what you feel or what you want to do, it's what you have to do. You know, and I was like,
food is fuel, right?
Yeah.
Full stop. That's
100%.
all it is.
And that makes sense. And in bodybuilding, your food intake is very critical. You know, extremely critical.
It's everything, right?
It's everything.
It's the growth, recovery, how lean you are, your hormones.
Exactly. And how you present yourself on stage really matters, and the timing as far as, you know, how much protein you're eating, you know, how you carb load the day prior, the day before, how you water load. It's all calculated. It's science.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
How long did you compete for, and how did you go? Did you do well?
I competed for a year.
Okay.
In bodybuilding, and there was parts that I really enjoyed. There was parts that I was not very.
What didn't you enjoy? Like.
Oh my God. Honestly, it was more, I felt like a lot of it had to do with a lot of politics. A lot of it was
Talk to me about that.
In regards to like what team you were from, had a big part to do with
who you know, who didn't know, really.
You know, because
is that just in the Vegas community, or is that?
I'm pretty sure that
exists overall.
Universal.
You hear these things, and it's like, is it true? Is it not true?
Yeah, it's pretty universal, and I think like coming from again a sport where, in any sport honestly, you know how you train, you know how much work you put in the gym, you know what the person next to you, how much work they're putting in. If I look at somebody who I'm competing with, and I just at a glance, you know how much work they've put in.
Yeah, because you got comparison to.
You know, and you look at yourself every single day. You know what quads are supposed to look like, what calves are supposed to look like, hamstrings, back, everything. You know, so when you look at somebody, even just at a glance, in a competitive level, I'm not saying like on an everyday basis.
Yeah.
You know, on a
Hey, his calves,
just judging people.
Yeah. His calves are small.
You know, but on a competitive level, you know, there's sometimes without a doubt, you know, like I have this, you know, or at least with the person next to you, you know. And I remember my first comp, I think I placed 4th for my first comp, but there was no way.
You feel like you're better than that?
Yeah.
Did people around you think the same?
Yes, there was multiple people that were like, how did that happen? I'm like, I'm not sure. But again, I was very new to it. So I didn't really question. I was like, maybe it was something that I did, or, maybe it was posing. So we asked judges, okay, like, what were you looking for? And the funny thing is that between competitions, if you have a competition early on in the year, then you train for like Arnold, and then, things like that, the judges are different. Your panel is different.
Okay.
So if early on in the year, your judge says, hey, I kind of want to see a little more softness, or less delts, less quads, a little bit more back, and you work on that for 3 to 4 months.
Yeah.
You're putting in work to do those things because that's the feedback that you
get.
get.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the next competition, you say you go into a Jay Cutler competition, and he's like, well, I actually wanted more delts, and more
because it's a
quads.
different judge.
It's a different judge. So that's
gotta be tricky, right? Yeah.
Yes. So it's kind of hard to like please everybody. I feel like your first and second year is just finding your footing around, the judges, what they want, what teams are like, what I mean? And I don't think a sport should be that way. Again, it's when you pin somebody on the ground, it's did you pin them or not?
Yeah. Did you win? Yes or no? Yeah. How does
Exactly.
I know bodybuilding height makes a big difference. With bikini, does height make any difference? Is there any pros or cons being shorter or taller?
Honestly, I don't feel like, I feel like there's this ideal, like maybe look, but I think for women, we can always wear heels.
Yeah, true. Yeah. I know you got a bodybuilder stands up there who towers over the next person. I know it can be
For
hard.
a male perspective, I feel like that might be a little trickier.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
It's not such a big deal with bikini.
I don't feel like there's such a huge deal with, bikini.
Okay.
But I do feel like maybe that range of like competitors kind of does range, maybe like 5'4", 5'5" is like an average.
Okay.
But I've seen a lot of, shorter women, kind of like, Jessica Ravala, she's probably around my same height, 5'2", maybe.
Okay.
She just kind of seems taller because, again, we have the option of wearing
Yeah, exactly.
We can manipulate our height a little bit.
Yeah. How do you go from bikini to powerlifting?
Oh my gosh.
And what makes you think you can do that?
What else ticked me off, right? No, honestly, I feel like at that time, Instagram was kind of growing.
Okay.
And people kind of, following each other.
What age is this, do you think? How old do you think you were, like when you started transitioning?
Oh my gosh.
Like 24 or 25?
Maybe 22, maybe like 22, 23, because I was still in like the junior category.
So still pretty young when you got into it. Okay. And what was it that got you into it?
A friend of mine who lived in California, his name was Mario, he actually was moving to Vegas, and he did powerlifting. Okay. And I've always had a very high respect for any athlete, anybody who either competes or just does any type of athleticism, because I know it just takes a different grit, a different discipline.
Was your training ever heavy, or were you lifting?
It was always heavy.
Okay, so
it was a lot of repetitions though. Like it was very high reps, but still heavy weight.
But you enjoyed that type of training?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was kind of like, again, it's what the guys were doing, so I kind of just followed suit. And I was like, okay, well, this is their training style, and I like it, I enjoy it, I like, my body composition and what's happening. So I was like, we're sticking with this, and I can handle this, But at the time, like I said, my friend ended up moving from California here. And he's like, we should get a training session in. And I was like, no big deal, again, I've always trained with guys, so I was like, it's never very intimidating. I was like, yeah, sure, he does a different training style. I'm like, but we're both in the gym, should work out fine. And I had mentioned to him, because he's like, he kind of, we always kind of played around with each other, and he was pretty brutally honest with a lot of things when it came to my training. And he's like, I kind of brought up to him, I was like, dude, like my knees are kind of like hurting, like kind of like cracking. And he's like, well, it's probably from your squats. He's like, your squats are trash. He's like, your deadlifts are terrible.
Oh, really?
And I'm like, wait, what? What are you talking
about?
Yeah,
okay.
You know? And again, you know, it's kind of like that criticism. So you're just like, wait, what? What are you talking about? And so he kind of started teaching me how to like properly squat, how to properly deadlift. And I was like, oh man, like this is a whole nother world.
Did it make a big difference?
100%.
What type of difference? You know, just like less injuries or less soreness or
100% less injuries.
Yeah.
So my knees stopped cracking. I was able to really build a lot of like the ligaments, the muscles, the tendons around my knees to really hold my patella, because I have a smaller patella than most people.
Okay.
I was just born that way.
Yeah, it's random. Yeah.
And I thought that was just a big reason. And I had gone to like my sports specialist doctor, and he let me know like, hey Liz, like if you continue to train, like you're gonna have to have like a double knee replacement.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, so it was that bad. It was almost like bone to bone. Like I had very little cartilage, and I feel like a lot of it might have came from like wrestling also.
Yeah, I'm sure. But your technique can't have been that bad if you're training with experienced people. Like I know powerlifters have got it down to a T, but bodybuilders have still got some idea what they're doing.
Yes, a lot of them do. I just don't think that there's, not everybody. I think there's a difference again, because when we first started bodybuilding, it was just me and my boyfriend. So we had really no experience, you know, we kind of just jumped in, and the thing that we really did have was discipline. Okay. You know, so we didn't have all the knowledge in the world, we just had discipline.
Gotcha.
You know, so it's like,
so you may be doing things wrong.
Yeah. So we
think
did
you're doing right.
Tons of trial and error. But in the back of our minds, it's like, well, okay, we're on the right track, you know, we're kind of doing the things we're supposed to. And then once I transitioned into powerlifting and learning that it's like, hey, your technique really matters. Like the reason why most people get hurt or their back hurts, or just a lot of male, you know, the males in general will stray away from squats and deadlifts and things like that. You hear it all the time. They're like, oh, I don't train legs. And I'm like, well, that's really peculiar. Why?
It's hard for your body. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
It's hard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Number one, because yes, it's hard. But then number two, it's like it's not done properly. So you're so prone to injury.
Oh, okay. So people are avoiding it.
Prone to injury. And that was me. But I was very stubborn. So I was like, even though my knees hurt, I'm still going to be in here training.
Yeah, which is probably not a good thing either.
Not a good thing at all.
Yeah.
Not at all, you know. And then I kind of got into the realm of what does technique look like? Why is it important? And that really allowed me to just build a different appreciation for the world of powerlifting. And that transitioned me out of bodybuilding.
And I get very obsessive with anything I do in life. If I'm doing 110%. You seem like you're kind of the same. So if you're wrestling, you're 110% in. If you're competing, you're 110.
Oh yeah.
So you got obsessed with technique, and all of a sudden you're powerlifting. Yeah. Yeah, because I'm kind of the same. I'm with anything I do in life.
Yeah, I kind of had to start from like scratch zero again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you notice you started lifting a lot more weight a lot easier once you got your technique down?
Yes. So my weights continuously increased when I was doing it correctly.
Okay.
You know, and I was able to feel like have that mind and body connection a lot easier also.
Did you feel like less effort moving the same weight than you used to?
Not necessarily less effort, but more controlled.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so it continuously became controlled, and at that time, I probably trained with him for maybe like a couple months. And he ended up picking up a second job and kind of just left me out in the wind. He's like, I'm so sorry I can't train with you anymore.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? Like, I literally just left bodybuilding to do powerlifting. And I'm like, and you're just going to like dip off me?
Gotcha.
I'm like, now what? And he's like, no, don't worry. Like, you can just train with, you know, some of my other friends that, you know, train similar. Okay. And I was like, okay, no big deal. So he basically dumped me off with a group of people, and I was like, hey, I'm just here to train, you know. And they were super welcoming. Like they're like, yeah, you know, just jump in wherever.
Is it a good community, powerlifting community?
I love the powerlifting community.
Okay. I guess it's so unique and different, so people are more accepting to more people, especially females, would you say?
I think now, at the time, powerlifting wasn't even a big thing.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't big at all. Like most people were trained. Yeah, there was no bars for them. There was no specialized like weights. Well, there are, but not like in our normal commercial gym. Now you go to any LVAC, EOS.
Yeah, my gym's got tons of
platforms and things like that cater to the powerlifting community. But at that time, no, we were deadlifting with hexagon plates.
Oh, really?
On the ground with
interesting
crappy bars.
Yeah.
Like we were making up our own, our own equipment as we go, if you want to call it that. You know? And so I ended up training with a group of people who now I've trained for about 7-8 years with.
Oh, really?
Became my coach.
Oh, so the people you met, you're stuck with them, and that's Oh, how good's that? So, yeah, that's so cool, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Gotcha.
Yeah, like the same thing. They kind of my coach was like, "Hey, have you ever thought about competing?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "Well, we're doing a competition in maybe a couple months." He's like, "You seem pretty, like you have a little bit of strength to you. We just gotta tweak a couple things because I still had rough edges from bodybuilding. You know." So I'm like, sure, why not? I'm already here.
I'm already done the motion.
I'm always like jumping on a
Are you very goal orientated?
Am I very
like goal orientated? Like you always go. So that just kind of gave you a new goal.
Exactly.
And something to push harder towards.
Yeah, something to really master. And they seem like they knew, a lot more than I did, and I think that's a key thing.
Were they competing?
Yes.
Okay.
So they were competing. So
it was perfect.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So I was like, yeah, sure.
What percentage of males and females are into powerlifting? Is it 50-50, or is it definitely more males?
At the time, I believe there was a lot less women competing than men. I think because
were men accepting to it back then, or was it this is a guy's sport?
No, I believe there was. I believe there was a mutual acceptance.
Just not a lot of people.
But just not a lot of people in general. Like our competitions were so much smaller at the time. But now you look at the powerlifting community, and it is massive.
Gotcha.
It's
and the female side is
something completely
increased.
Different. And the female side of things have just evolved.
Okay.
Like it's really a really cool thing to see how many women actually participate, and not just bodybuilding, but also now powerlifting.
Yeah.
So it's
that's awesome.
Transition is cool to see.
So what type? When you compete, is it bench press? Is it deadlifts? Is it squats? Is it? Talk to me about. I don't know much about the competition side itself.
So competition for powerlifting is squats, bench, and deadlifts.
Okay, so I know more than I realized.
No, you had it.
So what type of weight are you doing? What type of reps?
My reps don't typically go more than 8 reps.
In competition?
No, in competition.
Oh, while you're training. So it's just a one-off in competition?
Yes. So you get 3 attempts of one rep.
Okay.
And so the heaviest weight that you obtain in all 3 weights, in all 3 categories, they accumulate a total of that.
Oh, so you're based on all 3 in the competition. So it's not just one thing.
It's an accumulation.
So you got to be all rounded. You can't just be really good at bench.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
okay.
You have to kind of, or there's different parts where you can either, if you have a really, not necessarily the greatest bench, which is me, you have to kind of overcompensate in other areas as you're progressively getting better in
okay, so you got to kind of like come in first or second.
Yes.
If you're coming 5th or 6th. Okay. And then your training, do you know Julius?
Julius,
who does powerlifting? He was saying he does 5 days a week, 4-hour training sessions. Are your training sessions super long?
My training sessions are relatively long because I do like my mobility work and like a little bit of prior, like warming up and things like that. That takes me maybe about 20 minutes, and then I'll jump into whatever it is that I have for that day. I typically train 4 to 5 times a week, depending on how I can incorporate it into my schedule.
And how many sessions are you getting in? How long is the session itself?
The session itself is maybe about 3 hours, and if I don't get distracted.
So you're straight up doing 15 hours of lifting a week.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah. And it's usually because it's either like I have squats and bench, or if I only have one lift that day, then it's, it shouldn't be more than like 2 hours.
More than 2 hours. And is that because of the intensity and the rest you got to take in between?
Yes. So you definitely want to allow your body to like replenish, allow your ATP levels to replenish, your glucose levels to, just to allow you to perform the weight that you're looking to get to. You know what I mean? So it's you have to allow your body. You have to allow your body to kind of rest and then go back at it again.
How long's your rest in between sets, would you say? Just on average.
During warm-ups, I would say maybe like 2 minutes.
Okay.
You know, but then once it gets to my heavier sets, I take typically about 3 minutes between 3 to 5 minutes.
So you've done still done a lot of sets though, right?
It depends what the goal is. So on different days, if we're just working up to just a normal working set, the rest isn't too much between sets, and the sets don't range. Something normal would be like a 5x5. So you work up to that 5x5 of whatever number. Mm-hmm.
What say your 1 RM, your max, what percentage are you working up to generally? Is it 80%? Are you always going to 100%?
No, so from a 1 rep max, we have linear progressions. So my coach structures it where it's kind of different. It's kind of
I'm sure it's not always the same.
It's not, yes, exactly.
But I'm sure you're not going to 1 hour like your maximum weight, are you?
No.
Into a competition because of risk of injury and things?
We do.
You do from
I
time to time?
probably go for my 1 rep max probably once every 3 to 4 months.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. So that's how you work it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then...
Or actually not, sorry. That's totally incorrect. I go into my 1 rep max probably maybe once every 3 to 4 weeks.
3 to 4 weeks. Yes. Okay.
So every 3 to 4 weeks, we do kind of like a linear progression where I start at about 65%, then go to 70, 75, 80%, and the rep ranges change.
Okay.
Once it gets heavier, typically my rep ranges get become
lower.
Lesser,
yeah,
because of the more weight that we're tacking on.
Okay, very interesting.
Yeah.
So how much do you weigh?
I'm currently 124.
And give me your maximum weights. I'm interested. What's your max bench?
So my max bench is 160.
160.
Mm-hmm.
And then your squat and your deadlift?
My squat currently is 290.
Jesus. And then your deadlift?
My deadlift currently is 405.
Damn, that's impressive, isn't it?
For my body weight, a little bit.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And that's taken you 7-8 years to build up to that.
To build up to that with correct form, yes.
Yeah, and I know that's very impressive. Is competition-wise, are you winning? Are you still not winning? Where are you at?
Honestly, when I came in kind of blindly again because I had no clue what I was really jumping.
I just jump
in. I'm like,
honestly, that's the best approach to life is just to jump in with 2 feet and figure it out on the way down.
Exactly. Just say yes.
Too many people procrastinate and it's got to be perfect. It's got to be this. Just do it. What do you got to lose?
Oh my God, half it. I remember my first competition. I walked in and I didn't even have my knee sleeves on. Like I didn't even warm up for my first squat.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it was just all over the place. I had no clue what I was doing, but I had great people in my corner who were there to guide me, thank goodness.
Everything. How do you stay warm in between sets? Like in competition, if you're doing this maximum weight and then you're sitting around for what? 10 minutes, would you say?
Maybe about, yeah.
How do you stay warm? How do you prevent injuries doing that?
I think that you're with the adrenaline already happening.
But do you go sit down or you got compressions on?
You can sit down or roll out a little bit, but typically it's you're fine to jump into the next set if you don't feel that there's something
like niggly or okay.
If you don't have something that's like pulling on you or something, but typically you should be okay to jump into your next set.
That's interesting. Along all these like goals and all this training, have you ever lost motivation along the way? Or you kind of like, hey, if you tell me I can't do it, I'm just gonna keep going to
I think at some point we all kind of lose a little bit of like the desire because sometimes things become mundane.
Very true, right?
But I think, and I always go, think of a perspective as like, but as an adult, work becomes mundane.
Yeah.
You know, a lot
Definitely.
of the things that you do in life become mundane.
Everything,
but it's,
I'd
you
say,
know,
yeah.
it's what is the outcome that you want, you know? So there's been seasons that I've, you know, even during powerlifting where I kind of transitioned back into a bodybuilding style of training, but then went back to powerlifting,
Yeah.
you know, to compete and things
Just
like
to keep
that.
it fresh and yeah.
But there's never that motivation, I guess you could say, to not work out.
Okay.
To not, you know.
So you're always just setting little goals, tweaking things just to keep yourself motivated.
Yeah, I think it's always been a very place of like, it's very therapeutic. You know, it's a place where I don't have to focus on anything. I don't have to focus on work, on being a parent, on anything else but myself. It's like my place where it's me time.
Yeah, no, I totally get that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, of course, there's going to be days where you're just exhausted and you're like, you know what? I just, sometimes you just need time even away from the gym. And that's very okay.
100%.
You know, that's
and you got to listen to your body too.
100%. Yeah, exactly. And that's very much okay. It's more so also coming from a place of, is this beneficial for my health? You know,
okay.
and the longevity of that also.
What do you think about powerlifting and longevity and health? Do you think it's good for you? You think it's really good for you? You think it's going to catch up on you?
I think with done correctly, any sport is good for you. You know, because you could do soccer and really ask the same question. Well, what's the longevity of you running, you know, miles and miles? It's, are you doing the preventative measures and the things necessary to take care of your body on the back end of things?
Gotcha.
Are you stretching? Are you
warming up properly?
Warming
down.
up properly? Are you eating, you know, the correct things? When I come into the gym and I don't perform the way I'm supposed to, or what the goal is, my coach never thinks about, oh, you know, it just didn't happen out of the blue. He always asks,
did you sleep last night?
did you sleep?
Yeah.
You know,
when's the last time you went drinking?
Exactly.
Yeah.
What's your, you know, are you hydrated? Did you sleep?
How good's that though? Like, just to think that way. Because most people would think, oh, yeah, it's just an off day, whereas he's like, no, what do we need to fine tune on the back end to get you to perform on the front end?
Yep, I think that's the difference between competing and doing something to compete and just doing something maybe just to come into the gym. Because there's differences. There's huge differences. In regards to like what your goals are. You know, I never expect or even encourage somebody to train the way I do because my goals are completely different.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
My lifestyle is tailored to competing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whereas the average person, it's like maybe they just need to get in the gym and
just need to get moving, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And maybe hydrate. You know, very simple
even
thing.
Even just hydrate.
You know, very few people can drink the appropriate amount of water that they need to on a daily basis. So expecting them to have all these other, you know, regimens in their life is very unrealistic. It's not going to happen. They're not going to be able to stick to it. You know what I mean? So when I come into the gym, we're already on a different level.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? And so it's, is your nutrition on point? What did you eat? Did you even eat? You know, first and foremost.
That's my next question. What is your nutrition like? What are you eating? How often are you eating? I don't know much about powerlifter eating. What's the deal? Like, you've got to be burning some serious calories in that workout.
Yes.
So do you even know how many calories you're burning daily?
I would say it would range. I would say it's a little bit different.
What do you think the range is?
I can range anywhere from like 300 to 500, you know.
Like in your workout?
In my workout.
Okay. Which isn't too crazy.
It's what's happening on the back end, you know. It's not just those calories or the calories that are being burned when you're in the gym. It's like what's happening. You're building more muscle.
You're stimulating muscle growth. Yeah.
So the stimulation of your muscle is that you're burning calories for the next couple days.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, as opposed to just coming in and doing, you might burn more calories if you're doing more of like a high intense workout.
But that's not your goal.
And and it's first off, it's not our goal.
Yeah. So how many meals a day do you have?
I personally have maybe anywhere from 5 to 6 meals a day.
Okay, so you're eating every 3 hours. And then what type of food are you eating?
My regimen is still fairly clean, if you want to call it that. Because again, my goal is to perform.
So you give your body the right fuel.
Yes.
Okay.
And to perform correctly, you have to do whatever you can to have an upper hand on all control around your training.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I know there's always this huge stigma. It's like, okay, powerlifters can eat Pop-Tarts and all day long. I was
gonna say, how lean are you sitting now? Like, you seem like you're pretty lean.
I'm probably sitting at maybe 17% body
which is
fat.
Awesome, right? Like, so you stay there. So you're not chunking up. You're not putting excess weight on to lift more weight.
Actually, right now I'm probably at a heavier weight than I'm normal.
So you're actually high. How lean would you normally sit?
I would probably sit at 13%.
Really? So your diet's on point. It's got to be, right? For a female to sit that low, you're 99% of the time you're eating well.
Yeah.
Aren't you?
Yeah. So right now it's like I'm going up a little bit in weight because I want to be able to put a little bit more mass so I can be able to lift a little bit heavier, and then I'll transition back down.
How does that play with your mentally?
It's very hard.
Yeah, I was going to talk to me about that. Yeah.
So at the beginning, I was, again, tons of trial and error. Everybody's body is different. Everybody responds to different macros differently. But I've always been a person to just throw it out. Let's just throw it out there and see what happens. You know what I mean? Now it's a lot more structured for me. Now it's not so much of a mental thing. It's more of an acceptance.
Okay.
You know, where, what's the goal? You know?
The goal outweighs everything else, right?
Exactly.
Because as a female, you're probably used to looking good, feeling good, and all of a sudden, now I feel a little bit chunky. And that's probably how you feel, right?
Yeah, my striations aren't there, you know.
Yeah.
Which is totally okay. I think it also comes from a place of love, from a place of, being nice to yourself and knowing what's the goal? It's not the end all be all goal, or it's not the end all be all
here, right?
If you're not, at 13% body fat and you can't see your striations, you'll be fine. You'll be okay. But that's something that I constantly had to tell myself, you're fine. You're okay.
It's hard though, right?
But it is, because you look at yourself every day in the mirror. So again, coming from a wrestling background, I know a 2-pound difference. You know what I mean? So
how much extra weight are you carrying compared to what you normally would?
I usually sit at 118. So that's maybe an extra 7 to 8 pounds.
Which is a lot on your little frame. Which is a lot
for my size.
That's a lot on my frame. I'm 220, never mind on your frame.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a...
So at my size.
So that's really playing with your...
Yes. But it's also a test for me, my mental state.
Okay.
For my mindset, to say, can I be okay?
Being uncomfortable.
Being at this weight. Can I fully accept myself at this weight? You know what I mean? And it comes more down to, it's not even about the looks. It's I should be happy at any weight. I should be content with myself as a person, at any weight. But these are just the transitions that we're going through right now.
No, I get it.
And have fun with them. There's seasons that you have to find enjoyment in everything that you're doing.
You do, don't you?
Because if you don't, then it's just miserable. And it's why do something that you really don't find enjoyment in?
I like
or
that you say
something
that.
that really interests you. And so when I'm on my heavier sets, it's or my heavier side when it comes to weight, then it's I love to be able to play around with heavier weight. And so that's in itself great, because I know that eventually I'm going to come back down to my normal weight, but then I get to enjoy the fact that I have more muscle, and that makes me happy too.
I like that. Overall, people out there looking to lose weight, how important is diet?
Oh my gosh. It's really, really important, but I also understand how much we lack education on the nutrition side of things.
Why do you think that is?
Primarily because of the way we were raised, in my opinion.
So you're thinking your parents, or
in
you're
your
thinking
household.
Schooling? Okay,
in your household, in school, and everything around you. It's very socially acceptable to just eat a lot, you know, especially here in the US.
Especially
our
here
portion
in the US.
sizes are ridiculous.
Yeah. No, they really are.
You know, they're insane, absolutely insane.
And even the quality of the food and
the quality of food. When I wasn't raised around, you know, proper portion sizes or even understanding how much protein I should be intaking or why.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think if people really understood why and why it's beneficial for your body, you know, and, you know, looking good is just a byproduct of those things.
Secondary, right? Yeah. It shouldn't be the reason why you do it.
Yeah, it's just a byproduct.
But it's a nice bonus, isn't it? Yeah.
But it's easier to have people jump on board when it's like, it'll help you look nice. And I mean, the byproduct of that is that you'll live longer.
Yeah. But I mean,
so we'll kind of switch it up.
But I mean, if that's that, it is what it is, right?
Right.
Whatever it kind of takes.
Yeah. If we're leaning for a healthier society, fine. It'll give you abs. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely.
But yeah,
do.
I think growing up, we're not really taught how to eat correctly. You know, and so you learn those habits. So if you just, you know, as a kid, I remember I would just come in and eat hot Cheetos, you know, and maybe like a top ramen, and I was satisfied and I was good, which is probably the worst things that you can give your body.
And it's hard unless you get into weightlifting or you got a reason to get leaner or you play a sport where you want to perform better. Generally, you don't really have a reason to go out and to learn until you have some type of disease or some type of problem. Then you might take action. I was like, I started lifting weights. I want to get abs. Therefore, I started studying what to eat. You did the same thing.
Exactly.
But if you're just a regular person, there's not really any need to go out and seek that education. Therefore, you don't teach your children, and it just ends up this like generation to generation like vicious cycle.
Exactly. That we're constantly just going into, and then there's no end of like you said, that cycle where we're not really educated on how to properly fuel our bodies. You know, and if you don't do it, and if you look at grocery stores now, there's very few options that are actually like nutritional for you.
It's really hard, right?
There's a lot of things that are masked with,
even when you know what we know, it's so hard to find good food.
Exactly.
And it's literally, unless it's like fresh meat or fish or it's vegetables or fruit, it's very hard to get. And even the quality of those are awful. Powerlifters, do you do cardio? How important is cardio?
I think cardio is important for everybody.
Do you do it personally? Because I mean, you're training so much already, and you're a mother, you got all these responsibilities.
Yes.
Do you find time to fit it in?
Yeah, I mean, when it's necessary, you know, on days where I'm not really overloading my body. One of the biggest things is like that I've had to really learn coming from a conditioning background, coming from bodybuilding, is to slow down.
What do you mean by that?
Is to not overexert my body. Sometimes more is not better.
I would say 100% of the time more is not better. But it's figuring out that balance for you, right?
It's figuring out the balance, but also the science behind why. You know, you want to, for powerlifting in itself, you don't want to always overexert all of your energy in one session. You know what I mean? And I tend to do that a lot.
Do you really?
Yes, because.
So how do you break away from that and step back a little bit?
Having a program.
Okay, and having the right people around you.
And having the right people.
Because if you know it, but you have someone else tell you the same thing, it just reinforces it, doesn't it? Because there's certain things I know, but I read all the time, business books, and it always reinforces what I already know from a different point of view or perspective.
Exactly.
So you're constantly, and even this, people are constantly instilling the right habits that I'm already doing, but they're telling me from their point of view.
Exactly.
So you start to really believe it when you hear it from enough people.
Yeah, but then also the results. You know, I know when I overexert my body and I'm trying to do, you know, 80%, 85% of my weight, or 80% of my 1 rep max the next day, and I've overexerted all of my energy 2 days prior, I realistically have to know that that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Because I didn't give my body like a chance to really recover the way that it's supposed to.
Exactly.
Because of my emotional feeling at that time of like, maybe I didn't do enough. I'm going to jump and do some more work or something.
So at that time, you need to make sure you put more in, knowing that you're going to take that day off.
At that time, it's about trusting the process that you're going through. Like I said, for us, we do a lot of like linear progressions. So if this is on your program, like stick to what's on your program.
Okay.
And not overdoing more than what's on your program. And like I said, I am notorious for going off my program because I'm just, I have so much more energy most of the time where I want to do so much more. We need
to get you a new hobby. A new thing to do.
I get so eager to constantly do more, but I know that my biggest results is when I don't. Is when I stick to the program and I trust that my coach knows what he's doing, and he allows me to just go when I overdo it and I do more things than I'm supposed to. He just says, okay, go.
Okay.
Because I'm going to reap the repercussions of that in the next day.
So you need to learn yourself.
I learned
That's the
my
thing,
own
right?
lesson.
Even kids, sometimes like you've got to make a mistake for yourself to learn from it. And you're kind of like a big kid.
I'm like a huge kid.
That's funny.
I'm like the biggest child in the gym.
That's funny.
Because I'm just constantly, I'm like, oh, what is that?
Yeah.
And it's just that curious factor of me that it's like, oh, that's fun. Or like, I could do that. Like,
yeah, I gotcha.
But it's like, wait. You have a program, you have steps in place that you follow. Just like with anything, with a job, hey, you have, steps to take in order to get you to this result, when it comes to your nutrition side of things. Hey, you have this protocol, go with the protocol and trust the process. I think sometimes we get so impatient, and that's really what it is.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's a feeling of being impatient and not seeing the results right away.
Is your cardio on your program, or is that just something you put in for yourself on days where you might just do one exercise, or it's a day it's not too hard? Is that how you kind of do it, or are you being told to do a certain amount of cardio?
It depends what the goal is. So it depends, like if I need to drop weight.
Okay.
If my coach really sees like, oh, okay, like you're really struggling with these weights in regards to like my cardiovascular health, things like that.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Does that help a lot with your lifting? Like just being fitter? Or is it completely different, aerobic?
I think it does help to a certain extent because there's not a lot of extra fat, there's not a lot of excess fat that's just there. Every part of my body is being utilized for something.
Gotcha.
And that's how I like to look
it's
at
all
my
functional.
Body. Yes, I like to be a very like functional lifter.
Lifting machine, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so I love being able to stand in the middle of both. I love being able to stand in the middle of both bodybuilding and powerlifting.
Okay.
Because there's always this stigma between us both, and it's always a very playful, stigma between bodybuilders and powerlifters, where bodybuilders can't lift heavy weights and powerlifters can't be lean.
Yeah.
And so I really do sit in the middle of...
So that's kind of the standard you hold for yourself. I like that.
Is that we can break from stereotypes, and it's not always one thing. You're not always one label.
Yeah.
Whatever it is that you want to be.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
And to be the way you want to be, you got to train the way that it takes to get there.
Yeah, but both takes an immense amount of discipline. When it comes to the bodybuilding side, I think a lot of the discipline comes in your food regimen, 100%, because everything has to really be calculated down to a T when it comes to your nutrition.
Yeah, it's science, like you said, right? Yeah.
And then when it comes to powerlifting, I think your technique and being in the gym that's where you have to be very functional.
Okay.
And you have to make sure that you're performing your weights correctly, that you're taking care of your body, you're doing your mobility work, you're constantly improving in your core work, all the little areas that you might have deficiencies in, because we all have deficiencies. Those really play a part because you're looking to move and 2 to 3 times your body weight. You know,
Yeah.
it's not necessarily something that you should take lightly.
No. I had are you boyfriend, dating?
No boyfriend. And
What's it
not
like
necessarily
dating, being a powerlifter and being so strong?
Um,
How do guys take that? How do they accept that?
That's a great question, actually.
I mean, it's got to be interesting, right? Like, you meet this girl, she's got this huge, like bare handshake. Oh, by the way, I can lift like 400, 500 pounds.
Yeah.
How do people kind of accept that? Like, because guys have such big egos too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So when it comes to dating, I typically still date around people who can not necessarily lift the same weight or do the same sport, but as long as they're healthy and active, you know, because they don't have to be in the gym with me. That's my thing.
So as long as they got kind of like appreciation of what you're doing and why you do it.
Yeah. Of course, because just like if they had a job, you know, that demanded an immense amount of their time, you know, it would be very
that's a time thing too, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it would be very selfish of me for me to say, hey, I don't think you should be working there, or you know, unless it's detrimental to your health. That's another thing.
That's why I always look. Someone's got to like add value to your life. It's something like if someone doesn't increase your life, eventually they decrease your life.
Exactly.
And I'm a big fan. You got to be surrounding yourself with the right people who add value to your life.
Yeah.
And if they're taking away from your life, they really probably shouldn't be there.
Exactly. Or you have to be extremely disciplined. Because I've seen both dynamics. I've seen, you know, couples who one is extremely fit and the other one isn't. You know, but does it take a bigger toll on the one who is? Because the other one isn't necessarily as active. It does a little bit, but you just have to have a stronger mindset.
Yeah, okay.
You know, you just have to have better boundaries and have those conversations, you know, where, hey, this is actually a part of my life. Like, being in the gym will always be, being active is something that will always be a part of my life.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just, it literally is my lifestyle. Being active all the time. Even if it wasn't powerlifting, I would, you know, be doing
you'd find something new. You'd find something new.
Exactly.
And I'm sure next time I talk to you, you'll be into something new.
I probably will.
Yeah.
100%.
Booty building secrets. What is the key to every female out there that's trying to build a booty? You've done the bikini side, you've done the powerlifting side, you're doing a lot of deadlifts. What do you think is key?
For sure, it's just training those muscles. At the end of the day, it's like if you want something to look bigger, you have to train it. You know, so it's stacking on more muscle. You know, It's not doing an immense amount of cardio and things that aren't going to build your muscle. You have to have something sustainable. And muscle is sustainable. You have to keep the muscle on. So it does mean an increase in calories. You know, it does mean that you're training heavier, you know. So yeah, at the end of the day, it is a lot of squats and deadlifts, because you still want an overall rounded physique, you know.
Yeah, you can't just, you know how you can't just spot reduce your stomach. You can't just spot build your butt, right?
Exactly.
You got to do it overall, and it will
your
come with it.
Yeah, your body's not going to do what you want it to. I can't just say like, hey, I want less fat around my underarms or around my shoulders or my, you know.
It's an all or nothing thing,
Your
right?
body is going to lose weight wherever it wants to.
Yeah,
and how it wants to. So that comes into play the whole concept of patience. You know, you have to have the patience to actually reap results. You know, and to reap results, I do believe like you have to track things. If you don't track anything, then you don't really have a basis to go back to say, where are we tweaking? You know, where are we adjusting?
Where do we start? Where are we going?
Where do we start? You know,
is
this working? Is this not working? One of the biggest things for me was tons of trial and error.
Okay.
Just that, and that in itself is really something that's helped me, you know, constantly through different cycles. I've done, you know, the 40-40, 40-40-20 rule. We do 40% carbs, 40% protein, 20% fats. I've done low carb. I've done carb cycling. Probably everything and anything.
What do you find works best for you as far as like ratio?
It depends what I'm doing.
On your goal, okay.
So
like my normal training, like maintenance right now, I would probably say doing something like 40-40-20 is ideal.
Okay.
You know, just because it keeps a really symmetrical basis for all things for me to like really take fuel from. And when it comes to like dropping weight, I do drop my carbs a little bit, but I increase my protein and my fats.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean?
Okay.
So I don't necessarily take as much from the calorie side. I kind of just fluctuate what's happening
with your
macros.
my macros. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right now I'm doing keto for maybe the last 2.5-3 weeks, and I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah.
And everything's just gone sunk in even more, and I'm enjoying it. And I'm not forcing myself. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah.
And I don't plan on doing it forever. I'll stop when I want to stop.
Exactly.
And
And it's great for people to just, it's good
to experiment, like you said.
100%.
Yeah. Because it works well for me. I feel good. I function good. I'm good.
Yeah.
But someone else might try it and like, this is the worst thing.
And it might be the worst thing for them again, because they have a different dynamic. But
you don't know unless you do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like you have to have those calculations for yourself. And is it tedious? 100%. Of course it is.
But that's part of the fun.
But that's part of everything.
Yeah.
You know, that's part of everything new. It's kind of like riding a bike. Like, are you just going to, you know, jump on and, just automatically know how to do it? No, you're going to fall a couple times. You're going to scratch your knee. You're going to hate it. You're going to want to give up. It's going to be miserable. You're going to cry about it. But then you'll get the hang of it.
And then you appreciate it more.
And then you're just like, oh, this is fun. And now you can go to the store, as a kid, and you can ride around with your friends, and it's no big deal, but we're so impatient as a society to go through those motions. Very few people can stick to like a nutrition program for themselves. It doesn't even have to be a diet. It's more so, can you just eat healthier options for 2 weeks?
Yeah.
And that in itself is really hard. And
because it doesn't happen straight away.
But also it's like we have all these intangible things in our lives that come into play, like work and social interactions and your kids and so many other things that come into play. But that's where you really have to set like pillars and boundaries for yourself.
I like that, boundaries.
To be able to say, well, even though all these other things are happening, I know that I have a set goal, and it's just ideally if you want to be healthier or you want to lose weight. Most people's goal is to lose weight. To be completely honest,
big time.
It's always to lose weight. Okay, well, if you want to lose weight, like, are you setting yourself up correctly? Did you plan? Do you know what you're eating for the day?
You can't just kind of go in blind.
And a lot of people do, though. A lot of people go in blindly and don't really plan.
That's saying you keep doing what you're doing, you keep getting what you got.
Exactly.
Something needs to change. It needs to change dramatically and consistently.
Exactly. And I think pre-planning is ideal. Like, if you're looking to just start up, maybe find out what works for your body. Like, how many calories you should be consuming. And a very like moderate or very like baseline calorie intake would be like easy 2,000 calories, for most people, because I feel like most people are bigger than I am, and I'm around that. So I feel like, a baseline of like 2,000 calories. See how your body reacts to that. Because I'm pretty sure most of us consume way more than 2,000 calories
easily, right?
in just a day.
500 just on the coffee alone.
Exactly. The Starbucks is more.
Being a mom, how important is it to being that good role model, setting like building habits, like leading by example, like to say, like monkey see, monkey do. What's your thoughts on that?
I think it's really important for us as parents to help our kids gain an understanding of their own bodies, but also the nutrition side of things, where they can start learning how to eat properly, proper balanced meals. And they're kids, so you're not going to beat them down for like eating chocolate and candy and snacks. No, that's part of their experience as children.
And that's stuff I remember as a kid.
And plus they have the metabolism.
This is true. So what was your son's 15?
14 now.
14. So what was your way of kind of like instilling those things and teaching?
That's just what was at my house.
So monkey see, monkey do, right? This is what mom's going to the gym, mom's cooking, she's prepping food, she's eating right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So my regiment is very much his regiment in regards to like the main sources of protein, the main sources of fats. Of course, there's like it's funny because our fridge is almost like divided. There's mom's things, but then there's also his things.
Okay.
You know, when it comes to like the main meat things or the main meat sources for us, it's a lot of like salmon, steak, eggs, ground turkey, things like that. And so he consumes as much as he wants. Obviously, he's a kid; he's going to burn it in.
Yeah. Plus, it's healthy anyway. So you're eating healthy food, therefore he's eating healthy food.
Yeah. So
that's pretty much all there is to it, isn't it?
Yeah. As long as there's healthy food in your household, they're going to grab from what's in your fridge. Believe me, when kids are hungry, they'll eat.
Yeah. So if you don't buy it, they can't eat it too, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, but he's a kid, you know, so I'm always going to give him the liberty of saying, yeah, if he wants cookies and snacks and things like that, I like those things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, I grab those things for me too, so why couldn't he?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like the majority of the things in our household are handly picked to make sure that it fuels myself, because he also trains. He competes in jiu-jitsu.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is he active? And I guess he is. Okay.
Yes.
So you, by you being competitive and you being active, that's obviously come across on him too.
It's something very normal. It doesn't come off as like a sacrifice. It comes off as something that we just do. And
you've never pushed him into it? It's just something he's wanted to do?
When he was younger, I really wanted him to do a sport.
Okay.
Coming from an athletic background, I'm like, please, I cannot have like this kid who doesn't train or like sits around the house all day. Like that would be the worst thing for me, I feel like. But thankfully he ended up seeing a Gracie Jiu-Jitsu sign early on, and he's like, that's kind of cool, Jiu-Jitsu. And I'm like, you like Jiu-Jitsu? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, done. You know, the next day I signed him up. He started, I want to say maybe when he was like 8.
Oh, awesome. So he's done 7 years.
So he started and did it for maybe like 2 years, and then we were in the process of like moving, so he stopped for 2 years and then just got back into it.
So how good's that? And then like bullying stuff, he's not going to get bullied. If he does get bullied, he's going to be able to take care of himself. He's going to be able to defend people around him, even yourself potentially. Yeah. That's got to feel nice too, right?
It does.
It's not just about the fitness. The discipline, the mindset. There's so many benefits that come from that, especially jiu-jitsu.
There's something very powerful about martial arts, especially when you learn it as a kid, because it does, like you said, come with a lot of discipline involved. It does come with a lot of structure involved. Structure being the word, you know? Right? Yeah. And so it does. Respect.
You get humbled. Jiu-jitsu is the best place to get humbled.
Yeah.
You think you're all that, you're not all that when you roll.
Especially when girls can, you know.
Oh, yeah,
girls are in
exactly.
there, and girls will kick your butt, you know. And so it really does humble you. But also, I think one of the greatest things about jiu-jitsu and the sport that he's doing is that when they have newer kids come on, they automatically know, I can't go full force with this kid. Yeah. You know, it comes across as like, I want to help this kid.
And putting yourself back in your shoes when you started and how you would want to be treated, or how you were treated.
You know, and I think that's a really great correlation to life as you grow up as an adult, that it's like when somebody doesn't know how to do something, you don't criticize them for it. Yeah. And complete opposite. You're like, oh, okay, well, how could I help you?
I always try to put myself in someone else's shoes, because you just don't know.
Exactly.
If someone's rude to me, or I was like, okay, why are they rude to me? Do they have a bad day? There's a book I read, and it stuck with me forever.
What's it called?
And I can't remember what the book was, but it was like a guy on a bus coming back, and the kids are misbehaving, and they're tearing up the bus, and this guy's like, dude, like, get your kids in order. And he's like, oh, sorry, we just came from the hospital where the mother died. And it just it just kind of like, it just shows you don't know what's happened to someone, or where they've come. They could just be an asshole. It could just be a jerk. It could just be a Karen. But maybe they just had the worst day of their life. Maybe they just lost their mother. Like, you don't know. See, I always like to give someone the benefit of the doubt, and that book or that story always comes back to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's pretty powerful, isn't it?
Oh,
like,
100%.
Wow, like, yeah, I never thought about that. So I always like to put myself in somebody else's shoes.
Yeah, you have to be very lighthearted, you know, and
it's also not personal.
And that's exactly what I was going to say. Not take things so personal, because we don't know what story, what background they're coming from, what day they've had. You just really don't know. And you don't know their mental state in regards to how they're navigating through those things. Do they even have the proper tools to navigate through those things? They're doing what they're the best they can with the resources
that they've got
been given to them, or that they have at this current time, you know,
which is financial, which is your health, which is everything. Your parents teach you what their parents taught you, and they teach you, and that's with what tools they got in their tool belt. Full stop, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so someone who is always been in really good shape, someone who's always been in really amazing shape like yourself, what do you tell people as far as just losing weight, getting on track, getting the health back? You're 30, you probably feel like you're 20. I'm 40, I feel like I'm 20. And it's amazing, right?
Yeah,
and
of course.
People say it and like, oh yeah, whatever, you don't feel that. No, we feel amazing because we take care of ourselves. How do you motivate someone else to kind of take action?
I think it's really looking at what their outcome is, or what their desire for losing weight is.
Okay.
Usually it's not just losing weight. Usually it's more of like, I just
Something
don't
deeper.
like something personal.
Okay.
I don't like how I look, or I was bullied as a kid, and you know, this gives me confidence, or some, you know, things of that nature. And I think when you can correlate it to something that's more personal to them, I think they're more in tune to stick to it.
Okay.
To stick to a goal.
How do you find that personal thing? Is it just being real with like yourself? Just
asking questions, you know, like out of curiosity, like what's the reason you want to lose weight? Like, have you always been this size? You know, have you just recently gone through something? You know, a lot of people end up gaining a lot of weight when they go through breakups, or you know, even after having a child, you know. And it's like a lot of women end up tackling on a lot more weight than they'd really like, and they kind of get stuck there, and they ideally don't feel good about their bodies because they knew where they were prior to. And it's a feeling of not feeling their best at their current weight. So I would say the biggest things when it comes to helping people lose weight is really start small. Very small. Extremely small.
Slightly off topic, do you know how many calories a baby needs when it's in the mum's tongue?
I have no clue.
You know, like, I'll go to eat for two, and ladies can put on like X amount of weight. It's 200 calories. Is all the baby needs.
Oh, really? I was going to say probably not much.
200.
Because...
And that's right at the end too.
Wow.
So all these people like, I'm eating for two, I need X amount of calories. So they say that you shouldn't put on any more than 15 to 20 pounds. And the baby only needs 200 calories per day.
Wow.
So I feel like I'm not dissing moms, but you can't use that as an excuse. It's that very
social, you know,
norm. Well, there's all these things that people say that's been taught after generation, and they're not true.
Exactly.
And the more weight, the more weight you put on during pregnancy, the harder it is to get back on track.
Exactly.
And the longer the journey. Just like you and I, the further we fall off track, the harder it is to get back to where we're at. Exactly. So at 17%, you're not too far from 12, 13. But if you start getting at 25, now you're looking at twice as long, twice as strict to get there.
Yeah, and twice as like, that's not taking into consideration all the additional now obstacles. Like if you're having if you have kids, now you have more obstacles.
Yeah. More responsibilities, right?
Exactly.
Less money, less time. Yeah.
Exactly. And so when it comes to like weight loss things, I would take a personal assessment of where your life is. Can you even handle, you know, really losing weight at this moment in time? Like, can you do something as simple as doing your bed every single morning?
That's interesting.
You know what I mean? Like if you can't do your bed every single morning, which is the thing that you wake up in. It's already there.
Yeah, there's a famous military speech on YouTube, and it's some high, like, captain or something, and he's like, the first thing you need to do is make your bed.
Yeah.
He goes, you got to start with a habit, a simple habit like that before you think about...
Develop little wins for yourself.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that.
I think throughout your life, we're constantly, like, beat down. We're constantly told no, or you can't do this, or you're not good enough. You know, there's always this, you're not enough. You know, on some level, or we just take it that way, you know, especially like with social media, there's always these comparisons that we're not enough, or we need the next thing, or the next shoes, or the next bag, or the next something.
Competing with the Joneses.
You know what I mean? So there's always this stigma of you're not enough. So it's like, how do you set yourself up where you yourself can trust you? Yeah. If you can't trust yourself, you know, to make your own bed in the morning, which is something very simple, it takes maybe 2 minutes. What makes me think that you're going to be able to handle doing a full meal prep, you know, that takes, you know, sometimes a couple hours to then pack it, to then organize it, to then set up your macros, all in one sitting. It's just not realistic.
I know what you're saying. Like, even my car, I drive a $6,000 Camry, paid in cash.
Yes.
It's an old car, but it's a car and it works.
It's functional.
But what I do know is the average car loan in America is $500 a month over 96 months. Mm-hmm. That's insane on something that depreciates.
Exactly.
Not an asset, a liability. Mm-hmm. So I know, me driving that car, I'm okay with it because I know I'm $500 richer every single month than the average American who's paying off his car that does the exact same job that they're trying to impress other people they don't care about anyway.
Yep. And you can utilize that.
And that's just one little example, right?
Exactly. You utilize those resources correctly for other things, those extra $500.
Yeah, I can go away every month if I want, or I can invest it, or I can save it.
Exactly.
But and living in a smaller place, that's another way of doing it. I live in a place where I've had spare rooms and garages that didn't get used and the rent was twice as much. Yeah. Now I'm in a smaller place where every crack and corner is being utilized. But it's also putting me $1,000 in front on top of that.
Yes, but I'm sure that was a habit you had to build. It wasn't initially something
absolutely. Nothing I do on a consistent basis just happened. Exactly. It took small steps, like you said.
And falling on your face.
Yeah.
I'm sure it took a lot of time.
Sick of being broke, or sick of just paying the bills.
Exactly. Of seeing this car and saying, oh wow, like it's going to get me still from point A to point B, but I have to pay an extra $500 for it. Yeah. Or I could pay something outright cash and not have to worry about,
full stop, right? The expense of this car finishes now.
Exactly.
Which is such an amazing feeling.
100%. And I think for people, it's like, if you give them small tangible goals to accomplish first, to really see where the resiliency is. Yeah. You know, we really lack resiliency, but I think people are so powerful. We're so powerful when we're given the right tools and the right resources and the right support is really important, you know.
Huge, right?
Yeah, you have to have, number one, a personal assessment of yourself.
Being honest with yourself, right?
Being extremely honest.
Yeah, which is the hardest thing to do.
100%.
But also having friends who can be honest with you as well.
Oh, yeah. You know, if you ask your friends, you know, they know how many times you've told them, I'm going to lose weight, and you don't.
Or ask, do I look fat in these jeans when you do? And somebody needs to tell you that
how many times have you heard somebody say, okay, I'm going to start my diet on Monday, or I'm going to start I'm going to, eat this way starting next week. Next week comes around, by Tuesday, they're like, well, I had a birthday dinner to go to. And, and it's not even about the birthday dinner. It doesn't mean that just because you're changing the way that you're eating, you can't go out and have a nice dinner. But are you jumping back on track the next day?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. Not beating yourself up about it.
Yeah, and do you know that about yourself? I think that if you know that about yourself, then maybe restrict yourself for a week or two. Make it up to your friend in 2 weeks and let them know, hey, this is something that I'm actually really struggling with. I'm going to get back to you in about 2 weeks because I'm really trying to build a habit right now. And your friends who are your friends, who are
your
good
right
friends,
yeah.
exactly, will understand that and say,
respect
you know
that.
what, good for you.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're embarking on a journey to really build more resiliency in your life and better habits for yourself. You know, let me know if you need anything or I can help with anything.
Which is amazing, right?
Which is phenomenal.
Yeah.
You know, you need to have those friends. You need to have friends that can help you and are accountable.
Hold you accountable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and accountable themselves. I think when you have friends that are accountable, that's such a huge pull, you know, and I'm very grateful. Like I get to train out of Smash Iron. Because everybody there is, you've been there.
Yeah.
Everybody there is on their game with something, you know, whether it's jiu-jitsu, whether it's boxing, whether it's strongman, powerlifting, bodybuilding, everything.
Surround yourself with
Somebody is constantly always, you know, on their game about something. So it really creates an environment for us to stay accountable to ourselves just by looking around. You know, like, okay, he's on track. He's on point.
Yeah.
His weights are going up.
He was here
he's
yesterday.
Getting super lean. You know what I mean? So ideally, it's great to surround yourself with really good people while you're on that journey. Because it's so easy to fall back from, you know, it's so easy to, you know, say, okay, fine, I'm going to go out and have, you know, dinner and cocktails and, you know, the next morning, well, let's go out for brunch. And then, you know, it just becomes this repetitive
domino effect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It becomes such a domino effect to the point where it's like, dang, now I left my progress on the table once again. And what does that do to your self-esteem?
It beats you up, doesn't it? Mentally.
You mentally beat yourself up. So if you can find like those little tangible things for yourself to say, okay, let me just see if I can do my bed every single morning. And is it tedious in a sense that it's like you almost feel like nothing's happening? Maybe in your physique, nothing's happening. But what is happening is that mental like that muscle. That mental muscle
mindset
is working.
Is everything.
Exactly.
Everything.
So if you can work that mental muscle to create wins for yourself, your body begins to trust you.
Mental muscle. I like that. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So when your body begins to trust you, when you say that you're going to do something, you're more prone to do it.
Yeah.
But if you're constantly telling your body, hey, we're going to work out, or hey, we're going to go on this diet, or hey, we're going to do this, and you don't do it, your body, your mind, your brain has no reason to believe you. When you've constantly
let yourself down. Yeah.
Exactly. You've constantly, you know, let yourself down every single time. If your friend tells you, hey, I'm going to show up to pick you up for work every single day at this time, and they don't show up, you're not going to expect them to pick you up. You're going to be like, I'm going to get an Uber or somebody else to pick me up. You don't trust them. You're not.
No.
You know what I mean? So the same thing is with you on your own account. You know, your body takes, you know, into account all of those things. So can you do something as simple as hydrating? Look at those 5 very basic things. You know, self-assessment is your sleep. Are you getting 7-8 hours of sleep?
Yep.
You know, your nutrition, are you at least trying to make healthier choices with your food?
Yeah. That's a great starting point, right?
It doesn't have to be on the regiment of an athlete or somebody who's competing. That's not
Could
realistic.
even be a smaller size coffee. Couldn't
Exactly.
it? Something just, or one less Coke for the day. Or,
Exactly. Something very small, very minimal.
Yeah.
You know, and then your mental state. Like, how's your stress levels? You know, like, are you taking personal time for yourself to just really meditate or do some type of breath work, you know, to really bring down those cortisol levels? You get stressed out in so many different areas of your life.
Or just get out by yourself and me time, like you said. Yeah.
Yeah, and taking care of, like, those 3 things, you know, like, and of course working out. 4 things.
Finally, longevity. What do you think the key to longevity is?
Just staying consistent.
Okay, like consistent
with anything. I think if it's kind of like, you know, stocks and investing, you know, if you want something to happen, it's not going to happen from today to tomorrow. You have to stick it out. There's
so like
going to be
compound interest for your body.
Exactly.
I like that.
There's constant progression that will happen, you know, and it is very much like compound interest, because at the beginning stages, you might not see, you know, results. But once you get to doing something for 5, 6, 7 years, for me, it's a lot easier for me to bounce up and down in weight for my body.
Yeah.
Because of that compounded, muscle memory that my body has.
Yeah, muscle memory being the word, but also mindset, like strong mindset being another.
Exactly.
Habits being another.
100%. It's like, it's not just about the strength, it's about the mental capacity that I've been able to accumulate through the years of what does it look like.
So if you go through a divorce, or you go through a breakup, or you lose your business, or COVID, you're able to rebound quicker because you've built these things, right?
Exactly.
Gotcha.
You're able to bounce back to your foundation. So if your foundation are those key things of nutrition, hydration, sleep, and then, some type of self-practice, if you can always bounce back to those things, and then get back on track. But if those things aren't really fundamental,
it's no track to get on, right?
It's so easy for you to get off track. It's so easy for you to fall off course, and it's very simple things, but they're not as simple to stay on track with because, again, we've never really built habits of like the mental capacity and resiliency to really commit to those things.
It's funny, as you're saying these things, I'm thinking about things that I do or I've embedded or I've got going for myself, and I can relate to it. But if I didn't have those things, I'd have nothing to fall back on.
Exactly.
I wouldn't have that mindset. I wouldn't have that information on what to do, what not to do. Wouldn't have those exercise habits.
Yeah, where it's still in the back of your mind.
Yeah, my blueprint would be different. Like I got a certain blueprint for myself, what I like to look like, how I like to feel. But you wouldn't have that, would you?
Exactly.
Like I'm sure no matter how far off track you fall, this is who you are. This weight, this strength, this is. You've got these standards for yourself, and you'll fluctuate between them, but you always got that to. As your core, as your base,
to come back to.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's very much like it's muscle memory. Because we're all going to go through stress. We're all going to go through like hard times and things that really make us, fall off track, or even it's things as simple as like, going out to dinner, going out to vacations.
Vacation being a big one, right? Yeah, I go on vacations all the time.
Exactly.
And I'm never on track on vacation because it's very hard.
Of course.
But as soon as I'm back, I'm looking forward to get back on track.
Yeah. Or even while you're on vacation, it's still being able to consume healthier things. When I'm on vacation,
choices,
exactly. When
Do
I'm
they
on
have a
vacation,
gym?
Exactly. Can I, even if they didn't have a gym, can I ideally, do a quick little 20-minute high interval exercise?
Or I'm staying at the beach, I must go for a 20-minute walk on the beach.
Exactly. Something, a run, a walk, something to really keep you active. And I think because we don't establish good habits in our lives when it comes to like nutrition, and we're not really on track, that when we go out or we go on vacation, we feel this need to binge or splurge. Like, I'm never gonna not be able to have this again. When it's like, no, you can have it.
Yeah.
It's just, again, it's a mindset thing. Where it's, you don't have to eat everything in sight because you're on vacation. Eat what you'd like, But
it's also good to have salad and a steak.
Exactly. You'll be okay. Enjoy the dessert, but don't have 3 desserts.
Yeah.
Just because you're on vacation. I feel like a lot of the things that I eat when I'm on vacation are still very similar to the things that I eat when I'm here prepping for myself, just because I eat that way. That's my lifestyle. I love eating healthier things. So avocado toast is like my go-to in the morning.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So when I'm out somewhere, I'm excited when on their menu I see avocado toast or like, steak and eggs, something like that. It's still something that's ingrained with me. The only things that I really do go out of my way for is like maybe French toast or like, mimosa or, things like that. So it doesn't really throw me off track to a point where I come back and I'm like, oh my God, I feel terrible. I'm 10 pounds heavier now.
Yeah, I'm not going to do anything.
Yeah. It's just about finding that balance and that mindset of I'm not lacking, I'm not able to eat the things that I want. You are. It's just with balance, with moderation.
Love it.
Yeah.
Pleasure having you. Thank you so much. That handshake blows my mind.
Thanks for having me.
You're very
It's been
welcome.
a pleasure.